Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be trying a Tearlaments variant. I've only played Tearlaments the one time so far for our kind of pure post-ban list Tearlaments video. Well, of course, since the ban list has come into effect. And it's definitely been seeming pretty obvious that that kind of build of Tearlament is not going to be able to cut it in the metagame. It's not even necessarily the metagame itself that's the reason. It's actually the current power level of Tearlaments has nosedived. I don't think we've seen a deck in Master Duel actually take such a plummet from undisputably, and by a good margin, the top tier 1 deck to honestly now, like, in a lot of ways as far as representation goes, Tearlament is barely a rogue deck. Like, I think in terms of power level, it's absolutely rogue, maybe even tier 3 level, but people are just not eager to play this deck right now. But it makes sense at the same time, right? Tearlaments is in a really weird spot where even though they do still have access to Kitkallos, which I don't think is legal in either the TCG or OCG, even though we do still have Kitkallos here in Master Duel, the deck just does not have enough to be able to keep going, and by enough, I'm really talking about fuser names. Of course, with Merly having been banned at the beginning of the month here, the tier deck can now only do a maximum of 2 fusion summons per turn, not 3. And I think that is ultimately the biggest factor as to why Tearlaments has taken such a nosedive. It's so much harder to actually perform the fusion summon. Again, not only do you have fewer names to actually get into the graveyard, but you have one less name, so now it becomes in many ways just that much more difficult. Now, to be fair, Tearlaments will get a new support card. Well, they'll actually get multiple, but one particularly relevant one, which is going to be the Kashtira Tearlaments. But at the same time, in a lot of ways, it doesn't necessarily solve the problems that the deck is currently facing. It's obviously going to be very nice to have additional Tearlaments names, but, you know, the Kashtira Tearlaments does not actually do any fusion summoning. It really mostly serves to mill more cards. So I kind of wanted to see if the issue was a matter of not milling enough cards, or if it really was just not having the extra fuser name. So in that vein, I decided to take another stab at Tearlaments here, this time introducing the Punk engine. So what the Punk engine does for Tearlaments is it gives the deck that much more access to milling, right? In the form of not only Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, but also the Zombie Vampire. The Punk line is here to facilitate the summoning of these two monsters and in turn allow you to mill slash excavate an additional 9 cards per turn. Plus, of course, you know, Chaos Ruler and Zombie Vamp don't just mill cards, they also help you gain a little bit of advantage along the way. With Chaos Ruler, of course, being able to add, and the Zombie Vamp, of course, summoning a card. Zombie Vamp summoning is actually very relevant. Not only in this deck can we normal summon, or special summon rather, something like Tearlaments Reinoheart, or No P.U.N.K in order to go for plays. Well, to be fair, if you're going for Zombie Vamp, you've already made a Amin, but in any case, you could still pull out like a Fenrir or something. But also your opponent's monsters, you're able to summon one of those, or you have the option to summon one of those with the Zombie Vamp as well. So even if among your cards you don't have anything that particularly stands out, which again, there's a decent chance that you will, you can still often just grab something from your opponent's mills and still be good. Also, with the Tearlaments mirror match not really being a thing at all anymore, it becomes a lot safer to use a mill card like the Zombie Vampire that mills both players. This card was actually, in theory, pretty good when Tearlaments was better, but also because Tearlaments was better, you'll more likely run into the mirror, and as a result, it became more likely that you were just going to mill your opponent their own tier monsters. So how the plays work, I mean, there's not really any one particular combo line, but if you're wondering exactly how the punks contribute to the tier plan, aside from summoning the millers, basically what you do is you can either normal Amin or special it off of something like E-Telly. Either way, Amin hits the field, you activate their effects, pay 600, add the Foxy Tune. Foxy Tune then sends itself another card. By the way, this does send a card from your hand to the graveyard by a card effect, so you can send Havnis or Scheiren in order to proc that with Foxy Tune. You use Foxy Tune, send something else, you summon the Deer Note, you can then sync the Amin and the Deer Note for the Chaos Ruler, and then you're going to want to use Deer Note's effects to bring back the Foxy Tune. Then you have 2 8s and you can overlay for the Zombie Vamp. So yeah, I did, honestly, of course, because it's me, I did think about trying to squeeze in some Assault Synchrons, but I decided to just throw in a couple of Bystial monsters instead for not only extension, but also disruption, but also just more dark monsters in general, because for summoning back Chaos Ruler, the deck is a little bit light on dark monsters. So again, just had to throw in a couple of Bystials. These are very much placeholder spots though. Like there's probably almost certainly better cards that could be going in place of these. Like a third Super Poly. I actually am only playing 2, and I really want to play a third because I found that when I was playing, granted I haven't played too many games with a build like this so far, but when I have been playing, I've pretty much always wanted Super Poly. Super Poly is, of course, a really good card, but especially in this format, it has a lot of different stuff that it can hit. It's a little bit weak against Purgly, just because they do tend to have a lot of different attributes, but overall, Super Poly is still a pretty phenomenal card right now. So, I don't know. As far as the extra deck goes, everything's like pretty self-explanatory. Cross Sheep is in theory pretty good here, right? Because we can fusion summon like with a Tear Fuser in a zone that Cross Sheep points to and then bring something back. But I also really haven't, I don't know, I haven't really had any situations where that's kind of even come close to coming up yet. So I'll trade out for a little bit, but I can see Cross Sheep being non-optimal. Everything else, though, I like having here in the extra deck. So, okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover with this current iteration. You could also go up to 60 very easily, but I ultimately decided not to because I didn't think the 1 grass was a good enough reason to do it with a build like this. Plus, it's not only just that, right? Like, I'm thinking about the other 19 cards I have to add, and it's like, oh, I could throw in, like, Thunder Dragons, maybe some more Punk stuff, but I don't know, I would want to throw in, if I'm going to make it a 60-card build, I want to add more starters, not more cards that rely on the starters to get going. Well, extenders. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about the list right now. But anyway, let's break it down card by card, and then we'll look at some games. So, we're playing 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and a Joyous Spring, 3 Noh P.U.N.K, Amin, 2 Tearlaments Havnis, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 2 Tearlaments Scheiren, 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, 1 Keldo the Sacred Protector, 1 Mudora the Sword Oracle, 1 Kelbek the Ancient Vanguard, 1 Noh P.U.N.K Deer Note, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 3 Noh P.U.N.K Foxy Tune, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Primeval Planet's Perlerino, 2 Tearlaments Scream, another card I could see maybe cutting a copy of if you wanted more room, 2 Super Poly, 2 E-Telly, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Tearlaments Cryme, and then 1 Tearlaments Sulliek. So there's our main deck. For the extra deck, we are on 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Tearlaments Kitkallos, 1 Garura, Wings of Restorant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, 1 Tearlaments Rulkallos, 1 Tearlaments Kaliedo-Heart, 1 Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1, where is it here, Psychic and Punisher. We've also got 1 Time Thief Redoer, 1 The Zombie Vampire, 1 Divine Arsenal, AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Cross Sheep, 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer, Gloomy, and then 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So, there is our list. Let's see some gameplay now. Alright, first game that I'm going to end up showing off for this video is going to be against Traptrix. And if this is the game that I'm thinking of, we do some pretty nice turn 1 stuff here. Nope, this is not the game I'm thinking of. We're going to be going second here, but that's fine. Definitely do not mind showing us going second, especially against a more kind of back row focused deck. So, going to draw phase Maxx, just in case we're playing against anything with Kashtira Fenrir. And they're going to normal summon the Traptrix Pudica that will allow them to add the Garden. And it looks like they are, in fact, going to end up going for the Traptrix Sarah here. So, Sarah's coming down, Traptrix Garden is going to be activated next. We top deck a Super Poly, which is very good because that means this Sarah and whatever else they end up leaving on the field, usually the Rafflesia, right, the Xyz monster, we're going to be able to answer those relatively easily there. So, alright, looks like they're not ending on the Rafflesia, which is actually pretty good for us. They're just ending on the Sarah, the Mantis, and then 2 back rows. So, I'm going to lead with the Super Poly. Pretty easy pitch of Keldo here. Maybe could have considered pitching Fairy Tale Snow, but I think I'm more likely to want to normal summon that than Keldo. Going for the Mudragon of the Swamp here, we now get to Foxy Tune, and we could just discard the Fairy Tale Snow that way. So, or no, sorry, we discarded the Fenrir. That's actually a little bit odd. I would have considered, I think I would have thought that I would have pitched the Fairy Tale Snow. You're also probably wondering, Hex, why did you not summon the Kashtira Fenrir before activating Super Poly? Because you cut yourself off from it. You could have just had the extra discard fodder anyway. The problem is, you know, I don't know, I could have actually used it to maybe bait out the Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. I'm pretty sure we did know that they had that, right? So, Yeah, there is that. We could have actually used that to go ahead and bait that out. But also, I think a smart player, and I am in Master 1, so I do expect that, you know, my opponents are going to generally be pretty knowledgeable. I think a smart player would not use the Trap Trick Trap Hole Nightmare against the Kashtira Fenrir and just wait to use it against a more relevant monster anyway. Plus, didn't know what the other back row I was going to be walking into here was. So, overall, just to make the safer play, I decided to not summon the Fenrir and just go straight for the Super Poly. Well, and of course the other reason too is that if they did trigger a trap card, that would activate Trap Trick Sarah's effect, and I don't want them to gain any, really any amount of extra advantage off of that, if at all possible. So ultimately, I don't actually have any Tearlaments plays, and because of that Trap Hole Nightmare, I don't have Punk plays, but we do still have the ability to go for the Redoer and then summon the Zeus. I'm actually still going to set a face down card, the Call by the Grave. Even though I have the Zeus on the field, I can still potentially use Call by the Grave on like the Trap Trick Sarah, which will stop them from being able to use the effects at all this turn. So, Trapship Garden is going to special the Dionea. Going to use my Keldo to put back the 2 targets as well as my own Amin. Again, I'm actually not using Keldo on the Trap Trick Sarah, specifically so that I can use Call by on the Trap Trick Sarah, and not have to worry about it for not only this turn, but also my next turn as well. So, want to make sure that stays in the graveyard so we're not having to worry about that. Alright, they do get to still summon... They're going to try to summon the Sarah from the graveyard, that's right. Now I'm going to use the Call by, because again, even if they normal summon another Trap Tricks monster and then link off into the Sarah, they will not be able to use that Sarah's effect for neither of the next 2 turns here. Here's another Dionea, getting the special summon effect now to set a card from the graveyard, and then during the end phase I'm just going to go ahead and use the Zeus effect here. They do have a Treacherous Trap Hole, so we're going to end up losing our Zeus, but at the very least our opponent is not going to have anything set up on the board here. Now, we are kind of in top deck mode. We do have a Fairy Tale Snow in the yard, but that's not going to be too much by itself. Thankfully for us, the Fenrir is actually not a bad top deck here at all, right? Because we get to summon it, go for battle for 2400. I'm not summoning the Fairy Tale Snow here because I want to save it for Disruption. And obviously, even if I did summon it here, it wouldn't be lethal anyway. My opponent would still be at 1350 life points. But gonna just summon, battle with the Fenrir, and then pass over to my opponent. And things are actually looking really good here. It might not seem like that, given that my opponent has a good bit of advantage over me here. But they're in top deck mode. They're more or less in top deck mode, right? Even though they have 2 cards, because these 2 cards have not been useful for them the entire duel up to this point. So I suspect they're either a little bit situational or just overall not that great right now. And even if they manage to top deck a relevant Trap Tricks monster and normal summon it, I'm just going to go ahead and use my Fairy Tale Snow in response to the summon to turn it face down, and then they can't link into Sarah. And even if they manage to still extend further than that and still make plays, we can still just use Kashtira Fenrir to start banishing their stuff at that point. So, yeah, I mean, even though our opponent has advantage on us, we're in a good spot. Enough so that my opponent's actually just going to end up conceding here. So, funnily enough, this actually wasn't a game where we did Tearlament or Punk stuff, but in a lot of ways, this goes to show just how powerful decks that can fit a lot of staples are, particularly in this current metagame. Really, any metagame to be able to kind of play around the meta particularly well, but this kind of Tearlament hybrid variant is actually capable of running quite a bit of just random extra extension / disruption, like Fenrirs and Bystials that act as both. And we're seeing in this case how having cards like that is extremely powerful. So there we go. There is our first duel. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one here. Okay, here we're going to find ourselves up against Dragon Link. I think this is also actually a going second game. I had a lot of going second games when it came to playing this out here. Yeah, we went second here. Yeah, lost a lot of coin flips while playing this deck, but to be fair, this is a deck where losing coin flips isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we do have, again, just a lot of disruption. We didn't open any of it here, of course, but we do still have access to that. The other thing we often have access to is Super Poly, and this matchup is actually one of the reasons. Oh my god, is Dragon Link at 55%? Did I really just see that right? I did, 55%. That's insane, honestly. Although, to be fair, that's pre-Perly numbers. I actually suspect the number is probably lower post-Perly, because Dragon Link has a bit of a time trying to out-X Perly Noir. It's interesting, but in any case, that's a topic for another time. Yeah, no, when it comes to playing second against Dragon Link, I mean, we do have the Super Polys, so That is absolutely the one card I'm very much looking to rip off the top of my deck here. Super Poly, very good against Dragon Link, but Super Poly not that great against Pearly, because Pearly often puts out, like, different attributes stuff, you know, so. I don't know, I haven't really been paying the most attention to my opponent's lines here. Excuse me, but they seem fine. I mean, it was a bit of a roundabout way to get to the quote-unquote typical punk line. But overall, it does not seem too bad. Opting for the Chaos Ruler here. Oh, well, they have to go for the Borland still. Well, they don't, like, have to, but you know what I mean. For some reason, I thought these three were enough to make Borland, but nope. They're going to need one more. Okay, getting the Magnamhut here. By pitching the Lubellion. There's summoning the Magnamhut by sending the Striker. Getting more advantage off of not only the ad, but also the Chaos space as well. We're leaking off Pissy and the Chaos Ruler, actually, for Delindrous Dragon. Okay, so my opponent's actually still on this kind of a variant here, where they're using the Delindrous, probably instead of the Triple Burst. You usually don't play both, but Delindrous is, for what people have told me, is kind of not the way to go, because the line... To do this variant of the combo line, you have to Dharc lock pretty early on, use the Rocket Tracer effect, and, like... You know, if my opponent was in Dharc lock, they could maybe even summon a Baronne here. They're still going to make it Omni Negate by, yeah, using the Boardload effect and going for the Boardload Savage Dragon here. So, of course, going to equip the Romulus, and now Lubellion is getting summoned. Lubellion's effect will activate here to set up the Beast. Yeah, the Beast. Chaos Ruler coming back to the field now. And I think my opponent actually ends up linking the Chaos Ruler and Lubellion off for IP here. Yeah. Which I think is a bit of an odd move. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, it's probably only an odd move to me because I know that, like, once I Super Poly these two, this IP gets a lot worse, but... The Branded Beast also, they turned off their own Branded Beast here. Granted, they did add back the, not Sarandir, which one was it? Baldrake, right? Yeah, Baldrake, during the end phase. So they do have the ability to summon that and then pop it off for the Branded Beast, but I don't know. We do manage to top deck the Super Poly because we're the luckiest player in the world, so... don't have to think too hard about how we're going to out this board state here. Gotta just go straight into the Garura. I could have gone for Battle Phase and just hit the IP, but I was like, let's force out the Branded Beast and maybe some more of this disruption here, right? So, they actually have a Druiswarm on top of the Baldrake. I definitely do not want this Druiswarm to come down because obviously that would be very bad news for me. The Baldrake would not only be able to banish one of my monsters, but also they would get to pop another card. So, they're going to pop the Amin here with the Branded Beast, but that's actually totally fine. I don't think I even end up using the Amin's effect here. No, I didn't, which will actually matter here shortly. So, yeah, so here's how it's going to matter, right? So I'm going to end up using the Foxy Tune to send the Scheiren and then add the Deer Note. Note that I could have actually activated Scheiren's effect, in order to summon the Dragostapelia. But I don't want to do that because I actually want to tribute the Garura for the Deer Note. This will not only allow me to Synchro Summon for 8 into Chaos Ruler, but I also get to draw one off the Garura. So, drew another Foxy Tune. It's actually not the most irrelevant draw in the world, but not particularly great either. Chaos Ruler is coming down. Chaos Ruler is going to activate his Chain Link 1, going to Chain Block 2 with the Deer Note. Deer Note is going to bring back the Foxy Tune. So that way we can go for a Zombie Vamp here in a moment. Chaos Ruler is not going to reveal anything super relevant to add, but it does reveal a Kelbek to get some more mills going off there. The Kelbek mills aren't really eventful for me, honestly, at all, so we're just going to go straight for the Zombie Vamp. It doesn't look like my opponent hit anything, except this Dragon Maid Tiding. I feel like my opponent is on a Dragon Link build from, like, 6 months to a year ago. I don't know, it just seems like a bit of an outdated build with the Dragon Maid Tiding and the Delindrous, but... Okay, so yeah, my opponent's going to concede here at this point. It's not going to be hard at all for me to find lethal. The Reinoheart gets to resolve. We still get to bring back Chaos Ruler. So, yeah, pretty easy lethal here, and it makes sense for the opponent to concede. Alright, we have a couple more duels to look at. Let's go straight into the next one. Alright, so this game was against Spiral. Good old Spiral. So we're going to be going second yet again here. We went second, like, pretty much every single game. We have a Havnis into Super Poly, and a lot of gas besides that. So, I'm actually not feeling too awful here. Opponent's going to start with a Kashtira Unicorn, though, and then activate the Spiral result. So, Resort, rather, not result. So, after the Resort, of course, I know pretty much what's going to end up happening from here forward. And the awkward thing is, I can't really Havnis here with the Unicorn, because Unicorn threatens to take the Kitkallos or the Chaos Ruler. That's kind of the other thing that I think is, this is a very minor thing, granted, but Kashtira Unicorn is prevalent enough in the meta that I do think it does kind of hamper. It's not the only reason at all, mind you, but I do think it minorly hampers Tearlaments' ability to succeed, even a variant of it like this, because, I mean, it really doesn't matter what tier variant you're playing. If you get your Kitkallos banished by the Unicorn, that's just so devastating. Like, you just have a much harder time making Tearlaments plays after that, right? So, plus, again, in my case, it could even hit the Chaos Ruler, and that would also be pretty bad. So, I'm going to hold off on the Havnis. I'm going to wait until to see if they use the Kashtira Unicorn as a material for something first. But even if they don't, that's fine, because I know Appaloosa is part of this deck's turn 1, end board. And so if they end up leaving the Unicorn, I can just Super Poly away the Appaloosa and the Unicorn for the Mudragon there. So, I mean, at this point, yeah, I'm just letting them do just hashtag Spiral things. Getting a double mission there off the Princess Sprite. Getting the rescue mission now. Okay, here they're going for the Appaloosa, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So here is the Appo. Summoning the Super Agent now. And here's Quick Fix. Quick Fix adding the last resort. Yeah, yep. The Constrict Dullahan, yeah. I think these are pretty typical Spiral combos. I just don't know the most about Spiral, other than that their cards need once returns very badly. So, Magician Souls is going into Link Haribo, and then from there, it looks like they're linking off into Curious, the Lightsworn Dominion. So, again, I'm just kind of in, like, Unicorn leaving the field waiting room here, as my opponent is continuing to just completely pop off here. Okay, here the Unicorn is leaving now. So now they're using the Nightmare Phoenix, and they're just immediately going to link that off with the Curious for the Tri-Gate Wizard. So at this point, I'm going to try to get in the Havnis during the next monster effect if possible. I think it is actually the next onboard monster effect where I activate it, because here's the thing about the Tri-Gate Wizard, right? If it's co-linked with all 3 of its arrows, it's an Omni Negate, which is not good for me. So I want to, if possible, make sure that I turn it off, and maybe even the Appaloosa too. So now that Quick Fix is activating the effect, I'm just going to go ahead and pop off the Havnis here. I didn't expect this to resolve, but my opponent actually let it resolve, which is going to be a pretty huge mistake on their part, right? The Havnis, the 3, actually, it milled 3 very, very relevant cards. We milled the Reinoheart, the Kelbek, and the Sulliek, and these were actually, like, probably the 3 literally perfect cards to mill, because not only do I get to mill 5, summon the Reinoheart for a guaranteed mill, but I even get to chain block with the Sulliek, so my opponent can't use Appaloosa on any of my effects at all. So I'm just going to add another Scheiren, and then I'm going to use Reinoheart to immediately send that Scheiren I added. Kelbek is going to mill 5 cards. Scheiren is going to proc, gets chain block that with the Reinoheart, and we also mill the Scream, so again, we're chain blocking all of our links here with the Appaloosa, or to make sure we don't get hit with Appaloosa. Opponent is going to draw a Mockbird, which is actually really awkward for us, not just because of the Scream not being able to add, but also it makes going for Kitkallos really not feasible at all here. So what I'm going to do instead is go for the Kaliedo-Heart, which I think actually was going to ultimately be the optimal play, because what I can do with Kaliedo-Heart here is I can chain block it with my Havnis effect, and while the Havnis, yes, will get negated with the Appaloosa, the Kaliedo-Heart is going to, in fact, resolve. And I'm going to put back Appaloosa here with the Kaliedo-Heart. The reason I want to put back Appaloosa specifically is to not only stop those 2 monster effect negates, but this will also turn off the Tri-Gate Wizard and not allow it to Omni Negate nearly as easily. Opponent's going to have to go through a lot of hurdles to turn that effect back on, so I don't know, I think I played that relatively well. I mean, I don't know much about Spiral at all, so had I known more about their combo line, there probably was a better choke point for me to hit them with, but I don't know, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I don't think I did too badly there. The Kashtira birth was pretty obvious bait to get me to use my Keldo, but at the same time, I just couldn't have them bring back a monster, you know? Like, a Fenrir would just be too... I don't know how I would play through that on top of everything else, so... They're sitting back there a pointer of the Red Lotus. Here comes the double Helix again. This Nightmare Griffin is actually really brutal because, yeah, especially because they just sent my Kaliedo-Heart to the... They banished it as well. God, if they hadn't banished that Kaliedo-Heart, we would have been able to just battle over the Nightmare Griffin, and we probably would have been fine, honestly, but... Alas, we do not get so fortunate here, so... We do have a Super Poly, but unfortunately we can't really use that to get rid of much beyond the Tri-Gate Wizard and the Double Helix, which I will do here, but... It's just awkward. It's all just really awkward here. Like, we get to summon the Mudragon, but they get to a pointer of Red Lotus, taking my Reinoheart. Now, I can summon the Scheiren, which I am actually going to do here. Don't end up milling anything relevant, though. Just going to have to go for Redoer and try to make a Zeus that we can't even, like, you know, really use the effect of, but they actually still get to bring back the Link Karibo, so not even battling with the Redoer, trying to go for the Zeus would do it here. So, at this point, I'll just fast forward to the rest of the game. It's pretty apparent that I'm just going to lose here. But I think I stuck it out at least a little bit longer and made them have lethal on the field. Oh, no, I remember. I stuck it out because I was like, maybe they'll time out. Because spiral combos do take a while. As is probably pretty obvious from watching this, but... Nope, no such luck. Opponent was able to climb into the access code pretty easily and then just smack me for lethal with their board. So... Still a good game. You know, there's not many situations in which your opponent fully does their spiral combo and you can hope to play through or around it, but we actually almost managed to pull it off there. But anyway, we have one more duel. Let's just hop into that real fast. And our last game is going to be against Sword Sultani with a few interesting tech choices, including Morphing Jar of all cards. I don't know if that's just like a personal favorite of the duelist, and we went second again! We went second. I'm not exaggerating when I say we really did go second like every single game this this session. Of course, I'm laughing to myself now because I'm thinking of all the comments I get whenever I show a video that only has going first games, and it's like, I'm sure nobody's going to complain about seeing only going second games, but in regards to that, and I've said this before on the channel, but I'll make this point here again too, it really just comes down to, especially once I'm in Master 1, like, how many, whether or not I can get good quality games, right? Like, in a perfect world, I would love to have 2 really good going first games and 2 really good going second games where I have good back and forth during all 4 duels for every single video. But unfortunately, you know, you just don't always get games like that. One of my biggest issues with trying to capture going second games a lot of the time, I do have issues with it, is that it's not that of course it's not that I'm winning every coin flip, because that's obviously not the case, but it's just that the going second games don't end up being interesting because one of 2 things will happen. Either one, I'll just get wrecked. Either my opponent will have a good hand, I'll have no disruption, or I'll just have a kind of like a subpar hand and not be able to play through whatever board they make. It feels like it's either that or my opponent gets disrupted and I go to OTK, but they always concede before I actually do the full combo. And I'm not really a fan of showing games where I have a setup, my opponent concedes early into it, and I have to like kind of awkwardly explain what I would have done. I'll do that if I have to, but I like to show the full combo if at all possible. I don't know, for this last game I'm apparently just kind of ranting about, you know, YouTube creation process, but, you know, things are going really, really smoothly here for this game, right? We get to proc the Scheiren effect, go for a Rulkallos. We're going to miss the Millify from the Kitkallos. We're also about to summon a Chaos Ruler anyway. Oh, that's right, I don't even need to summon Chaos Ruler here. I actually have Lethal. This looks weird, but I do actually have Lethal because of the Qixing Longyans burns. I get to use Pep to banish both monsters. Then when I move to battle phase, Pep's effect will put it well over 8,000 attack. Not well over, but enough over 8,000 attack points to swing in for lethal there. So, fun kind of duel where we ended the game with Pep there at the very end. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for our games. Thanks everybody for so much for watching this video. Again, I just wanted to try out another Tearlament variant, and if any of you have been having luck with Tearlament this meta, definitely let me know. I'm totally down to try some more builds with that. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.